identify problems, challenges, and solve the problems and challenges of our customers, most often using automation. I would say that my job is well done when customers get their answers twice as fast, agents are happier, and the employee retention increases for the internal teams, and the customer satisfaction is growing. Zowie, of course, is a company, is a customer service automation platform for mostly e-commerce companies, but we do work with other segments as well. I'll be speaking more broadly about Zowie in a second. So yeah, really happy and excited to be here. And over to you, Evelyn.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's great to have you. Bella Bourne, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your company.
Hi everyone, my name is Bella. Sorry, you might be able to tell from my voice that I am currently recovering from quite a bad virus and I've just about got my voice back, but I was really keen to still be able to join this discussion as it's something I spend a lot of time thinking about in my work, but I apologise in advance for any croaking or coughing. So I work at Motion Metrics, a sports technology startup scale up, specifically on the product Carv, which is a digital ski coach, a ski wearable with hardware that goes into your ski boot that measures certain performance metrics. And those get run through our system to analyze level of skiing, and the user then receives a personalized coaching experience with real-time audio feedback. Yeah, I've been at Carv for just over 4 years, and my main focus and source of pride has been the building and growing of the customer experience and customer success team here at Carv.
Amazing. Thank you, Bella. And thank you for doing this when you're under the weather. Appreciate that.
No
last, but definitely not least, Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, thanks, Evelyn. Yeah, it's lovely to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm excited to be talking about artificial intelligence. It seems to be all anyone talks about at the moment. So I'm the customer experience manager at Springer Nature. Springer Nature is I guess what you might term a traditional publishing company. We've been around for 170 plus years, responsible for many of the world's most respected scientific and publications, including Nature, which is read by thousands of people every week around the world involved in science. So really our aims are to publish research that helps sort of advance things that are problematic in the world. We had a pretty exciting time during COVID. We published an awful lot of research around COVID when that happened. So kind of proud of the part we played in that. I've been with Springer Nature now just over 8 years. Focus is very much on measuring and improving the customer experience. When I joined, we weren't measuring it at all. Now you could argue we're measuring it too much, but we're looking at that and how we improve it. And I think key to that is the employee experience as well. So, which we'll come on to, I'm sure.
Amazing. Great. I'm really pleased to have you all. Just before we do dive into the questions, everyone, we just wanted to just set the scene a little bit in terms of what customer support does look like today and AI's role within it. Jeremi, I do know that there's a couple of slides. If you would just like to talk to these for us.
Of course, gladly. So, at Zowie, which is a customer service automation for e-commerce companies and other segments of customers, we work for years now with different companies and different teams within those companies around improving customer experience, improving customer service. And because we have been on this market for so long, we have such a broad and amazing perspective on how different teams approach automation and look at automation. And we also experience many people who have certain idea of automation that might not necessarily be right. I'm actually surprised myself, but so many people still today consider automation within customer service as something that's about automating simple questions around order status, around return policy, and so on and so forth. So building like this basic chatbots that support your agents in terms of working with all the questions from the customers. But at Zowie, we kind of know that automation and AI has such a bigger impact and bigger, potential for customer service teams. It's not just about automating those simple questions. It's about increasing your agent's efficiency and going from 10 tickets an hour, to 20 tickets an hour, but without exhausting your agents, but actually while increasing your employee retention and making the job of agents easier and better, basically on all counts. It's also about better and easier customer service management per se. So enabling the managers of the teams and those responsible for building these unique customer experiences by taking all the data and helping them to, analyze this data, see through the data. Within customer service, we have hundreds, if not thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands interactions every day with customers, and getting through that noise and understanding what's happening, where are we falling short, and where could we be better as a company, where could we improve this customer experience is very difficult. And AI has such a huge potential to enable getting those right insights and then building recommendations and improving the customer experience. And then lastly, I would say automation is not just about helping your teams work more efficiently today, but actually helping customers get proactively the help whenever they need it in places where they need it, right? So basically kind of foreseeing the problem ahead it actually happens and solving the problem before it even happens. And so automation has such a bigger potential. And, at the end of the day, the person who suffers the most from us not understanding what automation is about is the customer. And in here you see on the slide the data, which was really shocking to me when I first saw it, was that the average first response time to customer tickets is almost 4 hours today. This is such a long time. It offers such a bad experience. And, especially if you're a customer making the decision or having a problem or trying to buy a product, you want this answer to happen much sooner. And we believe, the industry standard should be, of course, at least less than 2 hours. So cutting this resolution and response time by half. But at Zowie, we think it should go even further. It should be really within minutes, and it has the potential to happen in the future within seconds. There is no reason why not. And in here as well, you can see that, most of us agree, yes, automation is important. Yes, we want to improve that. But at the same time, only 6% of the leaders across customer service actually have experienced an increase in efficiency of their teams and automations in 2023. And that is a shocking number. And of course, we should work. And I think for us to improve the numbers and improve the customer experience starts with the conversation around the right customer metrics. And if we would, perfect. And what are the metrics? There is this saying, what gets measured gets managed. And I think it's such a true statement, especially for the customer service. I think we should be discussing what are the right metrics for us, because everyone agrees, as you can see, 58% here, customer service professionals believe that automation can increase the efficiency. But what does this efficiency really mean? Like, what does it translate? What is efficiency within customer service? At Zowie, working with many customers, we have identified those key metrics that are important. And we believe that you should measure things like customer satisfaction, which of course is a market standard, time to response, which is another standard on the market, but also metrics such as employee retention, which shows kind of the quality of the tools you're using internally, as well as cost per ticket. Cost per ticket is a highly many companies do it, some others don't do it at all. We think that cost per ticket shows very well the impact and the benefits of AI, and it should get measured. But of course, this is not just about costs. Customer service is not just a cost machine, a sink hole basically for the cost and spending. We think one last metric that customer service teams should be measuring is revenue per ticket, not just cost per ticket, because automation has the potential to help you guys generate more revenue and help your agents become better advisors to customers. That of course results in the end with a better customer experience and better sales. And yeah, that would be my intro. Happy to hear what you guys think about it. And Evelyn, over to you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us, Jeremi. Before we go into the questions, I'd be interested for Mike and Bella what you thought of those figures and if that, rings true for what you're seeing too at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, a lot of what Jeremy was saying there was, really resonates with us. I always find it quite reassuring when I join webinars, normally as a participant this time on the panel, but, that I hear other people talking the same things that we're talking about internally. Cost per ticket is a huge subject for us right now, not least because it helps us talk to other areas of the business and go, if you resolve that problem for us, that will reduce the number of tickets that we have per year, and there is a cost implication to that, and that helps drive development as well, product development, which is really useful.
Brilliant. And is it the same for you, Bella?
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna totally agree with that. I mean, I think the challenge with all of this is getting really sound metrics that you can use to communicate with business leaders, like the decision makers, about how much you're investing into this team. Definitely agree with Jeremy's point about it being a revenue driver. And actually, there are wider business metrics that can be used in conjunction. Things like retention rate, conversion rate. What is the impact that your team is having on these very key customer decision making points that I think you can draw into the conversation and use more effectively as well.
Brilliant. In fact, hold that thought, because I do believe one of the questions later, we are going to go in a little bit more into the metrics that matter. So I guess without further ado, let's go into the questions now. Obviously, we've mentioned AI can play a huge role for both the agent and the customer. So maybe if we can come to you first, Mike, obviously as customer experience manager for Springer Nature, can you describe any cases where you've seen AI, really improve that overall customer experience?
Yeah, sure. And this isn't just because this is an Unbabel call, but we've been customers of Unbabel now for 3 years, 3 and a bit years. And, that uses AI machine translation, which has been so powerful and so beneficial to us, because we, like most businesses, certainly global businesses like ours, we've got a BPO operation in the Philippines. That is where around about 80% of our customer service teams are based. And English is their first language, or English is, in some cases, isn't even their first language, but they're competent in English. But we have a huge global base, especially in Germany. The origins of the Springer part of the business are in Germany, so we have a lot of German correspondents. But we've also got emerging markets in Japan and China, and those customers want to interact with us in their language. Why wouldn't you? And before Unbabel came along, we were limited by who could deal with those. They had to be dealt with by agents in our local teams, and they're not 24/7, so we couldn't provide that 24 all around the clock service. Then we got Unbabel, and that's then allowed us to translate the inbound emails using machine translation, using AI, to get that information in front of an agent in English, and then they can draft a reply in English, send it back through the machine translation, and the customer receives the reply in their preferred language. And that has been so beneficial, because it means that we've now been able to release or at least free up the resources internally, because more tickets are now being able to be handled at our BPO. And that's allowed those teams to get more involved in the more complex queries, but also in projects, and really, provide agent satisfaction for our internal teams, which has been hugely beneficial.
Amazing. And is that similar for yourself? Obviously, I know you have different use case, Bella, but any particular areas where you've seen that sort of improvement in customer experience from AI?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's this known fact that actually a lot of businesses count responsiveness as their most important metric. It's the most impactful metric when it comes to improving the customer experience. If you're not nailing it in that area, it's very easy for customers to lose trust that you're actually a legit business. Everyone has heard those stories about online businesses who've never responded. Nobody wants to be that kind of business. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been no end of impact in terms of things like responsiveness and also percentage self-serve, which ultimately mean that the customer has more agency to do things without depending on, as you said, Mike, like, a 24/7 team or language barriers or anything like that. It really does open up the game a little bit.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Okay, next question. So I guess things to be mindful of. Maybe we can come to you, Jeremi. If you could tell us about any concerns that maybe you've heard when it comes to AI and the customer experience. Is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be natural enough? Anything like that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the general structure of how we think about AI within Zowie is that it can kind of support you within customer service on 3 levels. The first thing is it can improve time, right? So to what Bella said, you have to speak with the right time. To what Mike said, you have to be able to communicate with everybody. So translation and kind of breaking these barriers is one thing. And then another thing is all saying it in a friendly way, so like improving tone of voice. That is the whole, you can be correct, but sound rude, and that's going to impact your CSAT in a huge detrimental way, right? And then the last thing, which I think is also very important, is giving the correct answer. So those are kind of like those 3 dimensions of how we think AI, or how you should think about AI within customer service. So it can help you provide the right answer. It can help your agents kind of provide the right answer. It can help it faster and, of course, do it in a more friendly, nicer way. If it comes to kind of the areas of concern for our customers and ourselves as well, of course, is we have generative AI, we have AI that is more legacy AI, let's say, especially within Gen AI. Of course, there's this conversation around lucid answers that are kind of made up, right? So I think this correct answers here are very important because you have to employ certain mechanism to protect the truthfulness of your answer. You don't want to give a customer the wrong information, of course. And if it comes to, like, I think AI will be progressing over time. We're going to be learning more how to use AI and employ every day. But in general, I think for now, we advise most of our customers that AI is your superpowered assistant that gives you superpower, because it can take one sentence and transform it into a beautiful email. But you as an agent and as a team, you should still have the control over it. But with every time an agent says, yes, this is the right way to transform this one sentence into an email, this is a learning experience for us and for the AI, basically, because it always remembers, oh yeah, here the agent said that I did it right. AI is like a student that never forgets its lesson. So the more we use it and the more we utilize it within teams, the less error, the less space for basically errors within factfulness and style and so on and so forth.
I like that you touched on the agent experience a little bit there, Jeremi, because that's obviously something that we do need to discuss as well. And, there's almost this, you hear that people are worried that, humans will be replaced by robots and AI, that's what AI is going to, do to us all. But maybe for Mike, can you maybe speak to ways that the AI actually can improve the overall agent experience and efficiencies and, really empower them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, going on back of what Jeremi was saying there, there's a lot of potential, and we sort of really are trying to stress that these are tools to help the agent do a better job. They're not to replace the agent. And I mean, one of the tools that we're only just getting into, but well, there's 2 actually we can talk about. There's one which is in our ticketing tool. We have what we call a thank you detector, and that's where it's a bit of a misnomer in some ways, but it's where we've replied to the customer, resolved their problem, and the customer replies with thanks very much. Now, before we use this, the ticket would reopen, the agent would have to look at it again and then go, oh, that's just a thank you, I can resolve the ticket. But with this tool, it looks at the intent of the inbound email from the customer. If it is as simple as a thank you, that's pretty straightforward. But it can also look at other things, you know, if it's a bit more complicated, but actually still doesn't require a response from the agent, it won't reopen the ticket. And therefore the agent doesn't have to look at it again, doesn't have to spend time, precious seconds, re-evaluating it, re-familiarizing themselves with the ticket. And that's been really useful. And we see that benefit in our ticket life cycle, our resolution time, but also just the overall agent efficiency. The other tool that we're just starting to get into use of is what they call a solution or canned response suggester. So this is where the agent opens a ticket and the system has already evaluated it and is presenting options for the customer, for the agent to use. You know, it's maybe about they haven't received their book that they ordered last week. You know, here's a solution, or here's a canned response you can use. And again, it's just about making sure that the agent doesn't have to go and look for those answers. The system has already evaluated it, but the agent remains in complete control. It could say, you don't know what you're talking about, that's nonsense, you know, and you got it wrong, I'm going to use this canned response. And then again, to what Jeremy was saying, you know, again, it's learning from that. It's learning from what the agent then chooses to do. Did I give the right ideas, or was there something better that I could have done in which I can do in the future? And all those things add up to huge savings.
Yeah, great. We do have one last question on this topic. I'm going to pass the mic to Bella. What are factors to be mindful of when introducing AI into support teams? Is there anything you can share?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things to be mindful of. I think there can be an impact on agent behavior, both from like a kind of an erosion of confidence, because a lot of the time the basics that they would normally go through and kind of be exposed to very regularly, they actually don't do that anymore. They're dealing with the more complex cases, but actually the fundamentals are less covered. I think that can be mitigated with training, but especially when it comes to, for instance, going against what your AI systems are suggesting as well, having the confidence to basically be like, no, actually, I'm not going to do that. That may have been what we did in this one case, and it may be what our systems learned from that previous case. But actually, in this specific case, with this nuanced like set of environment, circumstances, I actually am going to trust my own experience here to say I'm not going to do this. So I think there can be an erosion of confidence. And I also think the second like risk factor is distance with the customer. Obviously, with all of these things, it's really fantastic that we're able to speed up the agent, the operations that the agent's going through every day, the day-to-day operations. What would not be a good side effect is all of your agents feeling very, very far away from your customer feeling quite far away from you in respect, creating that distance, which most companies, especially product companies, where it's very dependent on feeling good with customers, having good relationships, wanting them to retain, that relationship is really important to keep close. So yeah, again, I think there's mitigating things that you can do with that, but I think encouraging to keep investment in every thread, even though there are these things that can ease your day-to-day, you still need to be invested in every customer.
Brilliant. I could see a lot of head nodding from Jeremi and Mike as you were talking. I guess you guys very much agree with what Bella just said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is 100% our observation as well. If you're an agent and you get suddenly this super powered assistant who is right 9 out of 10 times, you are likely to miss the 10th time it's suggesting you a response that's not right. So as teams, you have to take care of the right training, but I also think there is a way to mitigate that risk with highlighting, for example, specific parts that AI isn't sure about, or that AI says, this is an important information, you should double check that. So we should automate the automation and mitigate and automate the risk mitigation. And then last point, which I thought was also very relevant in what Bella said, is about this connection with the customer. I think there's a huge fear and kind of worry that automation takes this human element away from customer service and customer experience. And I mean, we've all been to a good shop and a bad shop, we know that this personal connection with someone who sells us a product and can advise us is such a huge, win. In digital space, it's the same. And just one thing from our point, because we have run studies around this, actually, if you do implement automation and you do take a lot of the workload off of agents' chest, to be able to translate faster and do their job faster, it actually does help them to have more headspace even to think and put themselves in the shoes of a customer. But again, I think it's very much dependent on the right setup that supports them in this, and sometimes as well demands that from them too. Yeah.
No, that's a great point. We do have more topics, so we're gonna have to move on, otherwise we'll need another hour. But no, this is great so far, guys. I'm really it's really interesting. Next topic really is looking at making that case for AI within the business. Obviously, we've talked about the pros and cons, but I think let's go to Mike first. Can you maybe talk about ways that you've had to or are trying to demonstrate the value that AI can bring to a business? Because, some people aren't too sure about it. Anything you can share with us?
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I think, there's clearly lots of benefits. I mean, maybe the number one benefit is no one wants to be left behind. Everyone's talking about AI. Everyone's exploring it. Why aren't we? That would be the question if we weren't. So I think that's a benefit. And, we are as Springer Nature as a company have been very engaged with AI for a number of years. I mean, we publish books on it. We've had covers of our books designed by AI. So it's been a topic within the business for a while, but it's probably only been in this year where we've really started seeing it have an impact in the support function. And everything that we've been talking about, we're talking about the efficiency gains. Well, that's good, but also customers are expecting it of us. They're almost questioning. In fact, I've seen satisfaction responses where they've come back and go, "Your AI is really good," and I'm going, well, no, it's not. We're not using AI for that. And I'm like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I'm well, I guess
Right.
It's probably a good thing overall. But it's been fascinating to see that customers are already anticipating that we're using it, and that's sort of the Gen AI, which I know we might come on to. But we're not at the moment, but it's absolutely an area we're looking to explore.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It's so popular that I guess, customers just automatically think they are speaking to a robot of some sort. That's really interesting. What about yourself, Bella?
Gosh, I mean, to be honest, there's so many things that you can use to prove the positive impact of AI. Like, it's undeniable. Look at every metric across the business. Like I regularly sit down with LT and discuss impact on conversion and retention and things I mentioned earlier. So I think it's I think it's a surprisingly easy thing to make a business case of. There may be some reluctance. I certainly was quite lucky because the product I work for literally uses machine learning in its coaching algorithms, and so there was a very open mind around implementing these kind of AI-driven systems. But it's certainly, when you've got clean data and you're able to record metrics cleanly, it should be, in theory, a very easy thing to validate the positive impact of.
Great. Okay, so last question on this topic, I guess, almost on the flip side, is what sort of questions or concerns do teams maybe come up with when you're trying to introduce AI into the business? Jeremi, would you like to give that one a go? We maybe have touched on that a little bit already, but maybe the stakeholders within the business, what do you tend to see them say no to?
I think Bella will have an absolutely amazing reply here, because I think Bella and I discussed once some worries within their business and their teams around AI. Like, just from my perspective, a brief word is, is this gonna replace me? Is this gonna help me? Just like general kind of, angst basically around something new coming up. Around the business and business stakeholders, going back maybe to the previous question a tiny bit as well, is like, how much is this going to cost us? I think a lot of people within the business positions look at those automated tools and they're like, oh, another cost on our list, when it's actually an investment. And in all of the cases so far, we didn't have a single customer out of hundreds of customers we work with where the investment in the tools and in Zowie did not prove actually at the end of the day more profitable than other avenues to grow their teams. So yeah.
Brilliant. Did you want to add to that, Bella?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was cost a consideration. Yeah, I mean, I'm in a startup scale up. There was no nervousness around the tools themselves, but making a good case for why we're spending money. That's always going to be a conversation that gets dug into quite a lot. So yes, I would say that the main question, the main reservation was, are we going to get the impact we want with the amount we're spending on it? But as I say, it's something that's quite easy to actually validate once you're up and running.
Great. And before we just go on to sort of the next topic, I don't know if you wanted to add anything there, Mike, in terms of maybe what you've seen introducing Unbabel, or maybe even now with what you're exploring. Anything to add?
No, I think, I mean, immediately before this webinar, actually, I was on a call with some colleagues in Germany and we were talking about the Gen AI, and it was very much a similar conversation that we had 3 years ago with Unbabel. It was like, how can we guarantee the quality? And I couldn't sit there and say, I can guarantee the quality. I can say everything I've seen, everything we've tested has been good, has been better than good, has been amazing in some cases. Some of the Gen AI that we've seen just blows your mind. It's like, wow, that would have taken me a day to write, and it's done it in 10 seconds or less. So I think that's been the biggest concern I think that we've seen from our internal teams is what is the quality impact going to be? And once you reassure them that there isn't going to be a quality impact, or if there is, it's going to be a positive one, then suddenly people get on board.
Nice. Great point. Okay, so you've convinced everyone AI is the right way to go. Stakeholders have bought in. Everyone's excited about the idea. Can you share any advice on what teams really should be thinking about when they are implementing an AI tool? So integrations, training, anything like this. What advice would you give? Maybe let's start with Bella.
Yeah, sure. So I would definitely recommend having a really clear idea of your tech stack, like everything you're using. What are the things that actually are working together, and what is your dream scenario given all of these things that have to be working? I would say that the greatest opportunity with implementing AI systems actually, and to do it well, it comes down to the personalization aspect of it, which you can't do unless you've got really clean customer data. So I would have a really harsh look at the way that you're capturing all of your customer data, what fields you have, what attributes you have for everyone. If those aren't neat and those aren't in order, you lose out on this amazing opportunity to create what is a very personalized AI-driven experience. So that would be my number one tip, is really have a look at your data, what's important to you and how can you get the most out of it.
Nice, very nice. Mike, anything to add on that front?
I think there's a lot of scaremongering around AI, that we talk about, how you're sharing your personal data with technology, and how they're going to, AI is going to take over the world, and maybe it will eventually. Who's to say? But I think it's reassuring yourself that there are protections in place to make sure that the information that is being shared with these tools is secure, is appropriate. Again, I'm going to come back to the Unbabel thing, how we personalize parts of the message, which are then invisible to the translation tool, people's names, addresses, that sort of stuff. And I think, again, that was kind of one of the concerns that was expressed within the business, is how are you controlling that? And once you realize there are tools and mechanisms to do it, and you're safeguarding against those things, it's then, I don't want to say smooth sailing. It's never smooth sailing, is it? But it suddenly becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got lots of questions coming in from the audience, guys, so this is great. We're good for time. I've got one more question on this sort of particular topic, which I'm going to come to you for, Jeremi, first, if that's okay. So what about tailoring AI to your business? So are there any particular steps that you would suggest other people take? It's kind of similar to the other question, but a bit more business focused.
Yeah, before we started the call, I think maybe Evelyn, it was you, or Mike, it was you. Someone said that the word of the year is automation, and especially in customer service. You know, and to what Bella said, I think the word of like previous years was personalization. And I actually do think that those two words are synonymous, you know, like you can, thanks to AI, you can build personalized experiences at scale. But you need the right data set, and like integrating, like AI doesn't really know whether you're in a business of e-commerce or whether you're in a business, you know, of airlines or anything else. The AI needs to have high quality data that feeds its context and information. So ensure and make sure that the platform you're working with can connect easily to all the systems where you currently hold this data, and that can interact with this data in a playful way, creating, you know, really cool experiences. And be really mindful as a customer. You know, I think the software industry in general has overinflated many promises. So that's why we're a little, you know, hesitant sometimes believing those big claims. So be mindful of that and make sure that, yes, you can connect to the systems, and that then, yes, you can utilize this data to create cool experiences. AI doesn't know, again, whether you're in one industry or another. So I would say the advice of implementing it would be similar to everybody.
Perfect. Before we do talk about metrics and results, Bella or Mike, is there anything that you did want to add there before we move on? Okay, so this is, before we go into the audience questions, we're going to talk about metrics, which I know we did touch on at the beginning of the session. Obviously, return on investment is always going to be top of mind, especially in this day and age. But what are the other key metrics that teams can really use to measure the impact of AI? So whether that's CSAT, NPS scores, what is it that you're seeing that you would, that either really matters to you or that you would really use to kind of push the case for anything new? So Bella, do you want to kick this one off? Because I know you mentioned some metrics earlier.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously you can have a wider impact on business performance, things like retention, conversion. I would say probably the one that I'm most interested in now in my team and that we talk about all the time is percentage self-serve. And that comes through all of the different things that we're working on, all the different opportunities that we've identified and are creating solutions for. Ultimately, we see this as one of the greatest reflections on how well we've done our job, like how well we've configured the system, like how well it's like also learning itself. And so I think that's definitely something I would suggest trying to get either through, like we use Zowie obviously, and it's nice for us because we can just track through the software, but finding a way that you can increase that level of self-serve but also track it and report on it is very helpful.
Interesting. And Mike, what about yourself?
Yeah, much the same, actually. I mean, I was going to touch on self-service. I mean, that's clearly an area we want to focus on. We've not found a metric yet which really gives us what we want there. So we're still quite reliant on customer effort score and CSAT as being the sort of prime metrics there. You know, and we've undoubtedly seen some improvements around that. We know there's a clear correlation between what we call the ticket life cycle, the time to response. We're not. Some of our queries are more complex than most, shall we say, and are rarely resolved on a first contact. You know, we've got some like that, but there are some which might go 3 or 4 contacts, and it's about how quickly that overall interactions last. And we know the correlation between that and CSAT, and that's why, you know, the efficiency of the agent being able to give the answers, being able to gain the information that they need to resolve the query as quickly as possible is so important, and where all the AI technology that we've talked about today really benefits us.
Amazing. Mike, thank you. And Jeremi, anything to just add on that in terms of metrics that matter?
It's such a great, I love talking about metrics in general. So just maybe a few things, like I mentioned this already before, but of course, the overarching kind of metric should be that your North Star should be always the customer experience or customer satisfaction. And you will see an increase in NPS, whether it's CSAT or NPS, however you measure it, due to shorter time. So those two are kind of tied together. But I think AI in many of the customers we work with is kind of a good accelerator because it puts pressure on customer service teams to get their metrics right. Because when you start talking about AI, you then have to figure out how much does it cost for you right now to process this ticket versus how much it would cost to you in the future as your ticket load grows and your team grows and so on and so forth, right? And then I think the metrics you should be looking at are always depending on the use case per se. So for example, recently we have implemented this tool where the main metric was to cut the resolution time. That was the North metric. And what we did was summarize really long email threads to agents, providing them with all the crucial information. But then also we have prepared the answers for them. So we were measuring time to response. So the time that it took them to get around the message and reply and write the first message, but also time to reply calculated as the time that they actively wrote the message. And we have saw 2-digit improvements on both of these. And then if we compared this set of tickets to tickets that didn't have this AI assistance offer for agents, the results were just much worse, even in terms of CSAT. So I think cost per tickets is one important customer satisfaction. Then use case by use case, you always will have a specific metric that you should be thinking about.
Fab. Now, we're good for time. And before we go into some of the audience questions, I just wanted to ask Mike and Bella, if you don't mind. Obviously, you're both already using AI in your teams with Unbabel and Zowie. And it would be great if you could both share some details around the kind of results you've seen so far, genuinely, whether that's, cost reductions or CSAT scores. So anything that you can share, real life with us would be great. Bella, do you maybe want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Oh gosh, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think people's perspectives are so kind of focused on the things that are relevant for them in their environments. I feel very privileged actually that CSAT has always been something that my team, props to them, we've done insanely well. We've had fantastic relationships with our customers to the extent where they will sing our praises online every day. And anytime we get a bad review, our supporters will be like, no, you haven't talked to them yet. Go talk to them, they'll sort it. So interestingly, I think my focus, although CSAT's incredibly important, and I do think it's a North Star metric, it's so interesting how the experience at in my company at this current time actually isn't really with a focus on that, because we've always done that really well, and we'll continue to put a focus naturally on giving a really good customer experience. I would say though that we are a scaling business. Our user base has grown tenfold in the last 2.5 years. Our operations obviously cannot scale that quickly. I cannot hire to keep up with the number of users that we're getting. So a huge focus and challenge for us has been around being able to manage this scaling user base with a team that doesn't increase in size every year. So it's been a huge success, honestly. This last year, we've pretty much been able to keep headcount level, which is very impressive when we consider that our user base is probably likely to go up by another 30% this year. And a lot of that is through a combination of the work we do with Zowie and what that opens up in terms of automation and self-serve. Also some other projects we're doing. One of the major opportunities for us is we have a hardware product, so sometimes things go wrong, and we've been working on creating remote automated diagnostics for that. And so that's a huge opportunity that we've identified and have been investing resource into coming up with a solution for. So huge impact, and definitely not just in cost but also in responsiveness. The number of tickets are lower than they would have been otherwise. But as I say, very lucky. CSAT's always been really high, so I can't speak for much of an impact on CSAT, but maybe I'm just lucky with the team I've had.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Bella. Mike, what about you in terms of your results so far?
It sounds like I should be jealous of Bella's CSAT. Yeah, I mean, we've not been measuring CSAT. Well, we've been doing it now for about 7 years. We had no idea where we should be when we started off. So, you know, it's all about creating a baseline, and then it has just grown from there. You know, and that's, as I said earlier, we know that correlation between speed of response, speed of resolution, and through the use of AI, whether it's with Unbabel or whether it's in our ticketing tool, has helped that, and we've just seen the CSAT steadily increase. It's not, I'm not going to pretend that it's gone through the roof. It hasn't, but as long as we're keep growing and heading into that graph keeps going in the upwards direction, we're pretty happy.
And just before we go into the audience questions, I was just wondering if either of you could speak to whether you have seen a difference in agent attrition with using AI, whether it's improved or if there's anything. That's just sorry, I'm throwing a question in there out of general interest.
I can take that. I think at the moment we probably haven't seen a great difference, if I'm honest. You know, but I think as we're starting to explore generative AI, I think that's going to get agents excited. You know, most people, we've all, over the last 12 months, everyone's heard about ChatGPT. Many have tried it, but you're not using it in real life environments, really, in the main, when you're just trying it out. Bringing it into their work environment and seeing how beneficial it can be and what impact it has, I think we've got a lot of people that are quite excited about it, and I'm definitely one of them. You know, so that I create a lot of our support content, or some of our support content anyway. I don't want people now around the business probably going, no, it doesn't create that much. But yeah, I create some of the support content, and it's like I can just type 3 lines in and go, well, I want an article that's going to say this, this, and this. Click the button, and there's a perfectly formed article, and that's amazing. You know, I'd sit there and go, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'd sit there and sort of go, oh, that's not quite right. I'll scrap that, start again, scrap that, start again. And it's coming up with something which is perfect almost immediately.
Brilliant. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes. We've got a good few questions. So let's have a little look about what the audience want to know. So first question, we've got Cliff asking, how effective has AI been on the customer satisfaction rating overall? Obviously, Bella, you've already mentioned that yours has always been pretty fantastic. Would anyone, you don't have to give us your actual score, but has it significantly improved with using AI?
So I can answer that question. Of course, it depends on the industry and the chat channel as well. Whether you're talking over email with someone or chat channel, you might see different results if it comes to automating those experiences. But because the handling time usually is cut dramatically following working with implementing automation into your workflow in customer service, the CSAT, we consistently see sometimes double-digit improvement if it comes to CSAT from the original number. So you will experience that. And then it also depends on the time of the year, because we have many customers who come to us in, kind of high season. We have Black Friday coming up, so we're probably all very scared about this, because this is the time when CSAT usually takes a dip for most customer service teams, because this handling time takes longer. But because AI doesn't care really if it's Black Friday or not, it can handle many inquiries, as many as you can throw at it. So in those periods, many of our customers avoided the dip that they experienced within their CSAT when the times are hardest, kind of.
Perfect. Okay. And then I don't know if you want to add anything with CSAT in particular, Mike. I know you mentioned you massively measure CSAT.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably still in the early days of seeing what the benefit of AI will be on CSAT. We've seen some impact with the use of Unbabel and the badly named thank you detector that I mentioned earlier. That's definitely had some impact, but the challenge, I think, is always when you look at CSAT, there's a million initiatives going on at any given time. AI is only one of them. So to sort of say, oh, that was because of AI is quite hard. But it's not having a detrimental impact for sure.
Great. I think I'm going to stay with you, Mike, on this next question, because I think this originally popped up when you were speaking about translations. So Niraj has asked, can you set the brand's tone of voice with translations?
Yeah, I kind of feel you might be better answering this than me, but yeah.
And you go for it, Mike. You go for it.
Yeah, you can. I mean, certainly with when we've worked with Unbabel, and I think the great thing about working with them is it's been a true partnership. From the very early days, and we talked about the tone of voice and the brand, how we wanted to come across. We see ourselves as a professional business. We're not quite the trendy business that can be a bit more chatty and friendly. We're dealing with very professional people. They expect a tone, and so we were able to work with Unbabel to make sure we set that expectation. But then that was right at the beginning. But then we have a monthly cadence call with people there looking at some of the translations which maybe don't quite hit the mark, and then training the system so that it gets it better and better over time. And yeah, so it was very important to us to be able to do that, and I think we've been pretty successful at doing so.
Absolutely. Great answer, Mike. And next question, how long have we got? We've got loads of time. Olivia asked, can you tell ahead of time how much work it takes to prepare internal systems for AI handling tickets? Bit of a techie question, maybe. Jeremi, you want to give that one a go?
Sure. Yeah. So I think this is it's going faster and faster. But in general, I do think that customers we speak in the sales process have a certain picture of setting up, decision trees and workflows, and that it's so difficult and it takes so much time. But especially with the introduction of Gen AI and kind of different tools to scan your existing websites, it's much easier. So for example, right now already what we use every day in our work at Zowie is a tool where you can basically provide your URL address, your website address, and we're going to take all the knowledge out of this website and transform it into automations within the system. So you have to then go review and verify whether the information there is correct. But instead of you having even to add it manually, we'll do that for you, and you'll only have to verify. And we don't stop there. We're also kind of training our AI on past interactions between agents and customers. So we take basically all the historical tickets you have between customers and agents, and we train the models to answer the questions more efficiently. So I think maybe today it still needs to be verified and checked and proofread. But I think a year from now, 2 years from now, it really will take hours, maybe sometimes even minutes, with simpler customer use cases to get it started with. And then we always also advise customers to start with a small portion, and then kind of the business and the questions, and then kind of build up automations from there. But it's really not a big deal anymore.
Thanks, Jeremi. We've got another question. It's quite specific around AI chatbots. So Niraj has asked, setting up an AI chatbot for my new company, what is the best way to make the journey smooth for internal and external customers? Anyone want to handle that one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to give my 2 cents on it. We did a big kind of software migration actually when we shifted over to Zowie a few years back. And it was certainly probably the most nerve-wracking part, because there's a lot of pieces to fit together, and you're very aware of the impact you're having both internally on your team but also externally on customers. So my advice would be to try and get set up with a new software and start configuring stuff before you actually do the final migration, just to ease that, minimize that time where maybe there's a customer impact. everything that I did when I was doing that was just around how can I minimize the customer impact, honestly, because obviously the team internal impact's not great, but it's something that we can manage without kind of necessarily eroding a lot of trust in the business. So we did handle that. We were kind of fairly lucky in the respect that our business is very seasonal. So we had an off season and we just chose the time when we knew volumes were going to be at their very lowest, both for customer and for team. So I guess we were lucky in that regard. But yeah, I'd probably say, if possible, start some of the configuration before you make that final migration, so that you're kind of going into a system that's kind of ready, set up to go, and that downtime is minimized.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of comment on that as well a little bit on chatbot. We've only got a very limited use of chatbot, but we've probably taken Jeremi's advice. Start with a pretty small area. We're able to do it in quite a confined space for a fairly unique type of customer with a specific type of query, and that just gave us the confidence that it can learn quicker than perhaps we even anticipated, and then you can start rolling it out and creating it to allow it to deal with more complex queries. And we're still learning now, but it's absolutely made sense to start it small, so that if everything went horribly wrong, which it didn't, the impact was going to be minimal.
And maybe just one comment from my end as well. Before you make the journey and make the jump, it's worth to look at your existing customer service operations and identify the low-hanging fruits. Like, start automating with the question that gets asked the most often, because it's going to motivate you to see this impact right away, and then kind of start building from there up, and everything else. I completely agree with Bella and Mike.
Wonderful. We've got a couple of minutes. I might just try and slip one last question in, and I would be really interested to hear everyone's point of view on this one. Is how do you go about comparing the different vendors? Because there's a lot, especially now. Are there any, green flags, red flags, anything to particularly, or that you would look out for if you were going to give some advice to people who are maybe starting the AI journey? Who wants to go first? Mike?
Thanks. That's the most difficult question yet, I think. I think it's really difficult. I mean, there are so many vendors out there. We work closely with our ticketing the company we use for ticketing, which is Freshdesk, and so they're kind of the first people we turn to, because we already have a relationship with them. It's helpful to have it all under one roof, if you like, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking at other options. And so I think it's a case of spreading the net wide and seeing what's out there, because there are so many companies offering so many great things. But I think with me, maybe this is a personality trait, but I go into these things with huge skepticism. If you're going to do a demo to me and it's not perfect, then there's a problem straight away. A demo has to look impressive, otherwise the reality is going to be not good. So that would be my perhaps tip is, if the demo's good, then think about moving further with them. Good
advice. Make a good first impression. What about yourself, Bella, before we literally run out of time?
I guess there's two quick things. The first is I would suggest looking for how flexible they are with configuration and how much they can build a solution that's bespoke for you and your business. No business runs the same way, and so having the ability to make it work for you is actually quite important. And the second thing kind of links into that, which is I would also gauge their responsiveness. The worst thing you can possibly have, especially when you're so dependent on a software, is that if you have a problem and you message them and they don't respond within an hour, that's a bit of a problem. So yeah, I would definitely say, like, how well they communicate and how quick they are to communicate as well.
Wonderful. Guys, we are literally out of time. This has been an amazing session. Thank you everyone that's joined. Thank you to everyone for your questions and general participation. Obviously, Jeremi, Bella and Mike, wouldn't have happened without you. You've all been absolutely amazing. And it's been a great topic to discuss. I hope everybody's learned a lot. Obviously, everybody, you will get a copy of the recording sent out in the next few days. And yeah, we'll see you next time for the next webinar. But thank you very much for joining, and have a lovely evening or afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.